In Istanbul, the streets choke on tear gas as a court-appointed trustee marches on the CHP's doorstep, sparking barricades, defiance, and a city on edge. Protesters lock arms, police tighten the cordon. And in Izmir, gunfire shatters the quiet. 2 officers killed, a teenager in custody. One nation, 2 crises, each testing the limits of power, protest, and the future of Turkish democracy. On September 8th, tensions in Istanbul reached a boiling point as Turkish riot police deployed tear gas to disperse crowds gathered outside the main opposition party's provincial headquarters. The standoff unfolded after a court-appointed trustee attempted to take control of the Republican People's Party, or the CHP branch in Turkey's largest city. The atmosphere outside the building was charged. Protesters, among them senior CHP officials, formed human barriers, chanting slogans as Gürsel Tekin, the trustee appointed by court order, arrived flanked by dozens of police officers. The headquarters had already been cordoned off the previous night after authorities announced a 3-day ban on gatherings in 6 districts of Istanbul. Party leaders likened the siege to an attempt to strangle Turkey's democracy. CHP chairman Özgür Özel took the stage at a rally, raising his voice against the judicial appointment.
From here, I invite all Democrats and CHP members whom my words and voice reach to protect the home of Ataturk in Istanbul. Shame on those who have put our home under police siege, who brought police special forces to our Istanbul provincial headquarters. To those trying to cancel our Istanbul Provincial Congress via unauthorized courts and seat an appointee there.
The trigger for the unrest was a court ruling last week that nullified the CHP's 2023 Istanbul Provincial Congress on grounds of alleged irregularities. The decision removed the party's existing administration and installed Tekin as provincial chief. Özgür Özel himself faces the threat of dismissal if the court rules that the CHP's nationwide 2023 Congress was also compromised. The mood across Turkey reflected more than a party dispute. It was a clash between President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government and the century-old party founded by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. As demonstrators heeded calls to rally outside CHP offices, Turkey's digital space narrowed alongside its public squares. Late September 7th, NetBlocks, an internet freedom watchdog, reported widespread restrictions on platforms including X, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and WhatsApp. According to Turkey's Freedom of Expression Association, throttling began around 11:45 p.m. local time, coinciding with the first barricades at CHP's Istanbul office. Authorities did not immediately comment on the blackout, though Turkey's Access Providers Union confirmed that implementation of court-ordered bans falls under its mandate. CHP's youth wing called on Istanbul residents to resist restrictions by gathering at the headquarters despite the bans. The siege, they argued, was designed not only to silence opposition leaders, but to intimidate ordinary citizens. The calls for defiance brought crowds in waves, first at 11 p.m. local time on September 7th, then again on September 8th morning. The government justified its actions from a legal standpoint. Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya emphasized that obstructing the trustee amounted to defying a binding court decision. The court had decided in its ruling to appoint an interim delegation to run CHP's Istanbul team, and disregarding that decision equates to obstruction of justice. Yet the interpretation was widely challenged by opposition voices, who dismissed the ruling as politically motivated. The confrontation also came against the backdrop of what the CHP describes as an orchestrated crackdown, one that has accelerated since the opposition dealt setbacks to Erdogan's party in local elections last year. The most symbolic blow fell in March, when popular Istanbul mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, once considered Erdogan's most formidable challenger, was jailed on corruption charges he denies. His arrest, announced days before he was to declare a presidential bid, triggered the largest street protest in Turkey in over a decade. For many CHP supporters in Istanbul this week, the siege of their headquarters echoed that moment. A systematic campaign to hobble Ataturk's party before it could again test Erdogan at the ballot box. As Istanbul grappled with barricades and tear gas, tragedy struck Turkey's western coast. On September 8th, a shooting attack targeted the Salih Hizgoran police station in Izmir's Balkova district, leaving 2 officers dead and 2 wounded. Authorities quickly identified the suspect as a 16-year-old boy, named in official records as EB, who opened fire with a rifle before being subdued. Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya confirmed the casualties and the arrest.
The heinous attack on the police station in Balkova left 2 officers martyred, another seriously injured, and 1 with minor wounds. The suspect in the incident, 16-year-old EB, has been arrested and an investigation has been opened.
Justice Minister Yilmaz Tunç announced a swift legal response.
An immediate judicial investigation has been launched by the Izmir Chief Prosecutor's Office regarding the incident, and 2 deputy chief prosecutors and 6 public prosecutors have been assigned.
CCTV footage released shortly after the attack captured the assailant, face covered with a black balaclava, firing across the street before collapsing with a leg wound as police closed in. Footage broadcast on TRT showed the suspect repeatedly yelling "Allahu Akbar" during the arrest. Izmir Mayor Semil Tugay voiced the city's grief in a stark message.
This treacherous attack has brought sorrow to our city. I extend my condolences to the families of the martyrs and to our nation.
The motive remains unclear, and authorities have not linked the assailant to any organization. But the attack rekindled memories of previous violence in Izmir, including a 2017 car bombing that killed 2 people. Turkey has battled attacks from Kurdish militants, Islamist groups, and radical leftist factions in past decades, with state institutions and police often the primary targets. The dual crises, the political confrontation in Istanbul and armed violence in Izmir, reflected the fraught atmosphere gripping the nation. For Erdogan's critics, the judicial pressures on the CHP represent a political offensive more destabilizing than any street battle. For his supporters, the state's resilience against both disorder and terrorism is proof of its determination to maintain order. As both Istanbul's barricades and Izmir's mourning played out on the same day, Turkey braced for a decisive week. At the heart of it lies a high-stakes trial on September 15th that could determine the future not only of the CHP's leadership, but of Turkey's multi-party politics itself.